Hi, my name is Frank Schaeffer. I'm a commentator and an author, and someone who has followed world history because my family, to put it bluntly, was part of it. We were part of the rise of the religious right in the 1970s and 80s, with sadly a line that can be traced from what we did in the so called pro life movement, which was really a misogyny movement masquerading as pro family, all the way to the election of Donald Trump and the storming of the Capitol. That's my history. I was born in Switzerland, went to private schools in England, and have lived in the US since 1980. My family remains an international family, and so I look at what's happening in the Ukraine through the eyes of someone who has kept track of the rise of Vladimir Putin. For instance, I think it's time now for us to draw on the truth about Vladimir Putin, and that is he's not in power because he did this alone. Ex-German Chancellor Gerhard Schroeder helped keep him there by lending $1 billion to him to build a pipeline and then becoming, after retiring, the director of one of the major corporations that the oligarchs were running. Tony Blair embraced him and paved the way for the oligarchs to use the City of London as the central laundering clearinghouse for the hundreds of billions of dollars that they stole from Russia as the communist enterprises there were taken over by private enterprise and stolen from the Russian people. President W. Bush looked into Putin's eyes, says he saw his soul there, liked what he saw, cut deals with him, much as the Bush family cut deals with the Saudi Arabians and exempted them from prosecution and investigation after the 9/11 bombings. There is a filthy history of cooperation with Putin's kleptocracy. He is not a leader, he is a mobster, and Western leaders like Schroeder, like Tony Blair, like George W. Bush, many others went along with him and allowed his oligarchs and Putin personally to steal hundreds of billions of dollars from the Russian economy and salt it away all over the world. And as long as it was also making Western bankers and business people and the City of London money, we went along with it. Now, all of a sudden, everyone pretends they are shocked by his latest invasion of Ukraine. These are the same people who went along with and did nothing about him poisoning people that he was murdering in Western countries, locking up his political opponents and having them murdered in broad daylight by the dozens. These are the same people who never have talked about the fact that he became president of Russia only because he and Boris Yeltsin faked 3 bombings of apartment buildings, blamed the Chechens, started a war, leveled that country in the way they're now trying to level Ukraine, all to put him in power and cover their tracks and delay an election that otherwise Putin would have lost. This is the filthiest rise to power by the most corrupt and evil person the world has seen since the great dictators of the 1930s. That is what Gerhard Schroeder in Germany went along with. They sold the West for a mess of pottage, to use the biblical analogy, this time a few $1 billion in their pockets, and personally Schroeder being the most corrupt Western politician who is not wound up in jail. So it is interesting to me that the Germans won't go there. They will not prosecute Schroeder. The British are not asking Tony Blair hard questions. Where are the businessmen in the UK who are now being arrested for having functioned as money launderers for decades for Putin and his cronies? There is a real day of reckoning coming far beyond simply the war in the Ukraine. The West had better look at itself in its multinational structure of being okay with the corruption, whether it's working with the Saudi Arabians or with the Russians. And one lesson we take from this is oil is filth. The oil companies are dirty, rotten people. They have lied about the environmental impact for decades. And now we see all of this coming to a head in the war in the Ukraine. May this moment of reckoning make us reconsider the way we always wink and nod at outright evil whether it's the murder and dismembering of a journalist by the Saudi Arabian prince, whether it is Schroeder making hundreds of millions of dollars personally out of a corrupt relationship with one of the most evil leaders ever to emerge in the world, or whether it's George W. Bush going along with not just the Saudis, but also with Putin and enabling him. What is the root that ties all these people together? Well, there's not one other than corruption, but the one we can name is oil. Let us fast track now away from fossil fuels, save our planet, take away money and toys from the most corrupt people on earth, and put the human race back on track to a better future. Thank you. My name is Frank Schaeffer.